In 71 BC, 6,000 men were nailed to wooden crosses along the Appian Way, Rome's most famous road, from Capua to the gates of Rome, one cross every 30 meters. For 130 miles, travelers walked beneath the dying for weeks. Crows circled. The stench was unbearable. Rome wanted the world to see what happened to slaves who dared to fight back. But the man who had started it all, the gladiator who had turned a kitchen knife into an army of 100,000, was not among the crucified. His body was never found. His name was Spartacus. And for 2 years, he had done what no one thought possible. He made Rome afraid. Spartacus was born around 111 BC in Thrace, the wild, mountainous land north of Greece. The Romans considered Thracians barbarians. The Thracians considered themselves free. Some ancient sources say Spartacus served as an auxiliary soldier in the Roman army before deserting. Others say he was captured in war. What is certain is that by the early 70s BC, he was property, a slave, sold to Lentulus Batiatus, who ran a gladiator school in Capua, one of the largest in Italy. Gladiators were athletes, prisoners, and condemned men. They trained to kill each other for the entertainment of Roman citizens. They slept in locked cells. They ate well, because well-fed men bleed better for the crowd. Spartacus was a Thracian fighter, trained with the heavy sword and small shield. He was strong, he was intelligent, and according to Plutarch, his wife, a prophetess of Dionysus, told him that a great and terrible power would follow him to his end. In 73 BC, Spartacus and about 70 gladiators decided they would rather die fighting than die entertaining. The plot was betrayed, but rather than wait for punishment, the gladiators seized kitchen knives and cooking spits. They fought their way out of the school and into the streets of Capua. On the road, they found a wagon carrying gladiatorial weapons. Now they were armed. They fled south to Mount Vesuvius, the volcano that would one day bury Pompeii. Rome sent a militia of 3,000 under Gaius Claudius Glauber. Not legions, not soldiers. A militia, because Rome did not consider slaves worthy of a real army. Glauber blocked the only path down the mountain. So Spartacus did the impossible. His men wove ropes from wild vines, descended the cliffs in the dead of night, and attacked the Roman camp from behind. Glauber's men panicked and fled. A gladiator had outsmarted a Roman commander. Rome was not yet alarmed. It would be soon. Word spread across the Italian countryside like wildfire. Slaves on the great estates, the men and women who worked Roman farms in chains, heard that gladiators had defeated a Roman force, and they ran. They ran toward Vesuvius. Shepherds came, farm workers came, household slaves came. Within months, Spartacus commanded an army of tens of thousands. Rome sent 2 more forces. Both were destroyed. The Senate finally took notice and sent both consuls with full legions. Spartacus split his army, one force under his command, another under Crassus, a Gallic gladiator who wanted revenge more than freedom. Crassus was killed in battle against one of the consular armies, but Spartacus defeated them both. A slave, a piece of property, was defeating the most powerful military machine on Earth. By 72 BC, Spartacus's army had grown to 70,000, perhaps more. He marched north. The Alps were ahead. Beyond the Alps lay Gaul and Thrace, freedom, home. The mountain passes were open. Nothing stood between the slaves and their escape from Italy. And then Spartacus turned around. No ancient source explains why. Did his followers refuse to leave, drunk on victory, wanting to plunder Rome itself? Did Spartacus himself believe he could bring the Republic to its knees? We will never know. What we know is that the army marched south again, and that decision to stay in Italy instead of disappearing over the mountains sealed their fate. The Senate was terrified. 2 consular armies humiliated, slaves roaming freely across Italy. The fear was not just military, it was existential. Rome's entire economy ran on slave labor. If slaves learned they could fight and win, the Republic would collapse from within. They gave command to Marcus Licinius Crassus, the richest man in Rome, with 8 legions and a simple order: end this. Crassus was ruthless. When one of his legions broke and ran from battle, he revived the ancient punishment of decimation, executing every 10th man by lot. His own soldiers. The message was clear: fear me more than you fear Spartacus. Then Crassus trapped the rebel army in the toe of Italy, the Bruttium Peninsula, and built a wall, a ditch and a rampart, stretching 40 miles across the narrow neck of land. An engineering marvel designed to starve 100,000 people into surrender. Spartacus broke through the wall. On a stormy winter night, his men filled a section of the ditch with earth and timber and surged across. But the army was weakened. Supplies were gone. Discipline was fracturing. Splinter groups broke away, and Crassus destroyed them one by one. In the spring of 71 BC, Spartacus turned to face Crassus for the last time, somewhere in Lucania. Before the battle, Spartacus was brought his horse. He drew his sword and killed it. If they won, he said, he would have plenty of Roman horses. If they lost, he would not need one. The slaves fought with everything they had. Spartacus cut through the Roman lines, trying to reach Crassus himself. He killed 2 centurions who stood in his way. He fought until he was surrounded. He fought until he fell. His body was never identified. The greatest gladiator who ever lived disappeared into the mud of an Italian battlefield, and Rome could not even prove he was dead. 6,000 captured slaves were crucified along the Appian Way. Their bodies were left to rot as a warning. Crassus never took them down. The Third Servile War was over, but its shadow haunted Rome for generations. No senator could look at his slaves the same way. The revolt proved that the people Rome treated as furniture could organize, fight, and nearly win. Spartacus left no writings, no speeches survived. His grave was never found. Yet his name outlasted every senator, every consul, and every general who fought against him. Karl Marx called him the finest character in ancient history. Revolutions were named after him. Statues were raised in his honor. 2,000 years later, when we think of a slave who refused to be broken, one name endures: Spartacus, the slave who made Rome tremble